Hello and welcome to SEC Basketball Predictions. I'm Chris Lee, joined by Blake Lovell and Max Barr. We are here to preview three games: Ole Miss's trip to Alabama, Florida's hosting Missouri, and Arkansas going to LSU. We will do them in that order. In case you're wondering about the other Tuesday night games, Mississippi State at Auburn and Texas A&M at Kentucky, we have those done in separate videos. Max Barr, right off the top, we've got Ole Miss going to Alabama in Coleman Coliseum. You may catch that at 6 Central on ESPNU. What is top of mind to you when you think about that matchup?
Keep an eye on that injury report for Big Cliff. I know he came back, but you never know how an ankle might be the next day, type of thing. I bet he pops up there. I bet you see his name. But I think he plays if he was able to come back and play in that game on Saturday. As far as a betting spread, I bet we're going to see. I think it'll be single digits, but I think it'll be flirting up there close to 10. Talking about a multiple possession favorite here for the Tide, guys.
Well, I mean, Alabama's one of the hottest teams in the country. Ole Miss, 3-0 to start SEC play, wins over Georgia, Arkansas, and LSU. And so, yeah, I'm curious to see what Vegas thinks of this game, because I think there's still people who want to see Ole Miss prove it more, even despite the 3-0 start. Two of those wins, according to our power rankings, which don't mean anything, but kind of give you somewhat of a barometer of where teams are. Arkansas and LSU are two of the bottom three teams in the SEC right now, if not two of the bottom four, just based on maybe the way they're playing. So if you take two of those wins from Ole Miss, maybe people still want to see them kind of prove it in these kind of scenarios, right? And so I think it's a big game for them, because we always say, what's the thing about going to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and playing a Nate Oates coach team in that building? They have the recipe to blow anybody out at any time. And so I'm curious to see how this one unfolds.
Well, we're expecting Alabama to be a favorite, and probably a substantial one at that. But let's talk about some things Ole Miss has for a minute. First of all, they block a ton of shots, despite not really having a rim protector. They get them from a lot of places, and they're also experienced. Number 3 in the country, according to KenPom. One thing that can negate a road advantage is a team that's been there and done that and played in environments, Max. And Ole Miss has got a lot of guys led by Matt Morrell. They've got a Sean Padula, who we love, is one of the better point guards in the league. I think Ole Miss, there's a scenario in which Ole Miss can make this, I think, more interesting than whatever spread comes out at, just because of that experience and that guard-heavy lineup, which, oh, by the way, has been really defending very well of late.
Yeah, it's the third oldest team in the nation against the 19th oldest team in the nation. So you're gonna get some veterans here clashing. I'm very excited for that Padula against Sears. I don't think there's going to be a ton of defense played between the two, but a ton of offense. Guys, the one thing that I'm really looking at for this is just the matchup of the front courts. I think that might be the difference. I think that's the biggest advantage that a team like Alabama could have over Ole Miss. I mean, you just look at the depth of size. When you look at Ole Miss, they've got probably about a 4-man rotation between Dre Davis, Jamin Brakefield, Malik Dia, and Brown Jones, although Brown Jones is dinged up right now. So knock that back to a 3-man, and you're going against an Alabama front court that's just going to come at you in waves. I'll be really interested to see how a guy like Malik Dia, who has really played well lately, fares against a front court like the Tide.
Well, one of the reasons Ole Miss is winning games is because they're not beating themselves, and I think they're forcing turnovers. They're not committing turnovers, and I think anytime you get in a game like this on the road in SEC play, if you can force turnovers and you're not giving the ball up yourself, that means you're going to get some extra possessions. And my goodness, would any team out there love to have extra possessions against Alabama? And so, I think that's kind of something here that stands out a little bit. If it's closer than people think, if Ole Miss pulls off the upset, I think that's the story, is that they go down there, they turn it over 7 times, they force 14 turnovers for Alabama, and they capitalize on those, right? Like, that's probably the formula I would see for this play. I mean, it's Chris Beard defense. We always say they're starting to find that extra gear a little bit on the defensive side. A little vintage Chris Beard D for the Rebels. So I think that's something too that I really look at as I'm trying to figure out this game and say, is this going to happen to Ole Miss like it happens to a lot of teams with Alabama in that scenario, or can they find that magic formula to win?
Picks.
Chris, I'm going to do something you usually do, and that's look at the possessions. When you look at Ole Miss's possessions, 3 games through SEC play, 65 and 65 against Georgia and Arkansas, and then 69 against LSU, have not eclipsed 70 possessions in SEC play yet. Last year, when these teams met, it was in Oxford. That was a 75 possession game that actually Ole Miss was up by 15 in the first half. They were up 37-23. There was no right cell for Alabama on the road. Huge second half. Alabama won 103-88 in Oxford last year. I don't know if they'll get to 100. They definitely are capable, but I'm gonna go Alabama here. I just think they've got the Rebels' number.
Yeah, good point, Max. And when the question is who can force their style on the other team, it involves Alabama. Your answer is Alabama. Texas A&M found that out the hard way the other night. Alabama's last 12 games have all been, 74 possession games or higher. A&M got to 79. North Carolina got to 83 on the road. Go all the way back to Illinois, a team that can really defend you. 81 possession game. Houston, 76 possession game. Look, Alabama is on a roll, as we have said many times. They are starting to get all their guys together. It's starting to be more cohesive. Mark Sears is playing better. This team is on a roll. I think Ole Miss is a really good team. I don't think it's going to matter. Alabama wins, and it might be going away.
I like my series trends, and Alabama broke one of those trends at Texas A&M. Remember, I said they had 8 straight games. They had scored 66 points or fewer against the Aggies in College Station. They put up 90, whatever it was, 94, something like that.
Yep.
But, Alabama fans, you better hope this trend doesn't break because you want this one to stay in your favor. Alabama has won 7 in a row against Ole Miss, 9 of the last 10. And let me tell you, most of these games have not been close in the Nate Oates era. Now, the difference is, I think this is probably the best Ole Miss team we've seen in this stretch. But let's just humor me for a second. Alabama last year, as Max said, put up 103, won by 15. The year before, Alabama wins by 22. The year before, Alabama wins by 14. Sorry, hold on a second. Yeah, actually, they've only played. So they've only played once each of the last 5 years. 103-88 Alabama, 84-62 Alabama, 97-83 Alabama, 82-64 Alabama, 103-78 Alabama. It's the last 5 games. 2018-19, they played in the SEC tournament. It was a 5-point game, 62-57. That's the outlier because even the year before, 74-53, Alabama won that game in Tuscaloosa. All that to say that in this era, Alabama has been able to force its style on Ole Miss no matter who the coach has been. Will that be tougher this time around with a better Ole Miss team? I think so, but I brought up all the numbers. Look at Alabama at home this season. 110. What else? They put up a lot of points. 105, 107. This is what the Tide do, and I think it may be a little tougher than these recent games have been, but I say that and always use that with the caveat of, but it may not be. They may just come out and bombard you with 3-point shot after shot and blow you out. I don't know if that happens here, but I'm going to pick the Tide in this one.
Missouri goes to Florida. That game is 8 Central at the O'Connell Center, televised on ESPNU. Both teams winners this weekend. Max, start us off here. Another game of good guards. I think Missouri's hallmark is its backcourt depth. It's also got Mark Mitchell to contend with. But, boy, Florida, we do spend a lot of time talking about their guards. You spend a lot of time talking about how Alex Condon and that front court are really coming on. I mean, the rebound numbers for Florida lately are just absurd. Remember what happened last time Florida hosted a home game? That was one for the history books.
Yeah, a really interesting matchup here. Really interesting. You got 2 teams that probably had, if we were trying to rank just how did teams do last week, probably 2 of the better. Missouri coming off 2 straight, Florida coming off 2 straight. So I really like where both teams are at coming into this. And also, when a lot of times, guys, we're able to say like, well, they didn't have this guy, or they didn't have this guy, or we don't really know what's going on. I feel like these are the two of the teams that know exactly who they are and really have an identity. Florida, they are going to just come at you in waves and waves, and they're going to try to crush you down low, and then kill you with the guards. Missouri is going to try to seek contact and then seek a little bit more, and they're not going to let you get any easy passes inside, raking at the ball, clawing at the ball. Two teams with really strong identities here, both coming off of strong weeks. Very excited for this one.
Yeah, Florida looks like a machine right now with the way they're playing. They're playing really well. Like we said, they've got a loss on their resume now with the one at Kentucky, but I still personally don't think they played that bad there. They just played a team that got what they wanted offensively, and I think maybe you wonder, like, is that going to be the same scenario for Missouri? Because what's been going on with Missouri, right? They're back to the formula that worked. They're forcing turnovers. They're making shots consistently. How easier the game gets when you can just make shots. And they're doing that this season, at a more consistent rate. And we talked about Missouri before, just their ability to attack, get to the free throw line. But even when they don't, they're able to knock down shots. They're, again, more consistent, and that's going to be the key. Winning at Florida, as Chris said, the Gators get a 30-point win over Tennessee last week in Gainesville. Now back-to-back home games this week against Missouri and Texas. Florida looks like one of the best teams in the country. And so I think it's a bit of a challenge for Missouri heading on the road here for another road game in SEC play against a top team. Of course, they've already done that at Auburn about a week and a half ago.
We don't have a line on this as we do this around lunchtime on Monday. Ken Palm's got it at 12, so everybody is going to expect Florida to win. Everybody's going to expect us to pick Florida for those reasons. But if you're looking, and I think this is the value of our previews, for a storyline of, okay, if it doesn't look like we think it should look like based on our eyes and based on what the matchup looks like on paper, give us an outline. Okay, let's look at Missouri's biggest win of the year this year. Tamar Bates had 29 points. And boy, when we get into Tamar Bates' big scoring games, we find this last year. 36 points had Tamar Bates against the Gators. Also had 29 against Arkansas. I think he's a big storyline. If they get in a scoring battle with Florida, which is likely, he needs to have a big game. The other guy on that team that I love is Caleb Grill, who is a top 5 smart player in this league. Just does brilliant things. We know how much Missouri missed him. I do think between that and Anthony Robinson, who's had one of the better years for point guards in this league, there is a scenario in which Missouri has got the play, and also Mark Mitchell inside. The Duke transfer has been really good. I do think that on a given night, Missouri's got enough really good players to make this one interesting, Max.
Oh, they definitely do. And one reason why is because they can get your bigs in foul trouble. They've done it almost every game. And when you look at Florida, as good as Ruben Chinielo's been, past 3 games, 3 fouls, 4 fouls, 5 fouls. He's fouling a lot. He fouls about 4.6 times per 40 minutes. But what I wanted to highlight here, Chris, you mentioned him earlier, Alex Condon. Guys, did you know that Alex Condon is 1 point against Kentucky away from starting SEC play with 3 straight double-doubles? With, I think that's 11 assists, no turnovers.
Goodness.
And 6 blocks. I mean, he's 1 point away. He had 9 points, 10 rebounds against Kentucky, 12 points, 12 rebounds against Tennessee, 12 points, 10 rebounds against Arkansas, had at least 3 assists in all of them, not a single turnover, had a block in all of them. Didn't go over 3 fouls in any of them. I mean, this guy is playing incredible right now. I bring all that up to tell you, Missouri's a team that might be able to get them in foul trouble and really change the tide here.
Yeah, my guy, Al Condon here, has been tremendous. He really has. And we talk about that Florida front court. I mean, that's going to be a big story, I think, in this game, too. If we come out of this, let's say Florida wins comfortably, or, there's a couple key plays down the stretch, I still think, even though the guards get all the attention, those guys are going to make big plays, but it's just the value of the front court, I think, for this Florida team and how they kind of counter what we've seen with Missouri's guys. Mark Mitchell and just going down the line. Josh Gray, I think, really valuable in a game like this.
Yes.
You need all those fouls from Josh Gray. I think you got to be able to be physical, and I think him, rebounding the ball, physicality, those kind of things are going to be crucial for Missouri in this one, given Florida's just ridiculous offensive rebounding numbers and such. So,
Picks Max Barr.
Yeah, if there's one team that can really just take whatever game plan you have and just throw it right out the window, I would say it's probably Texas A&M, but right behind them, I would say it's Mizzou. Just because of, within 5 minutes, you could be in the bonus with this team. They really attack you that way. And also, they're top 15 in the country in turnover rate defensively. So they can get out and just muck you up. However, like Blake said, I think the front court here is the difference. And even if you get Chinula or Condon in foul trouble, you still got horses behind them. I think Florida will be too much over the course of 40 minutes. But I do think Missouri has stretches here where they're looking real good. But I'll go Gators.
Yeah, I like Missouri. I've maintained all along. I think it's a better team than the predictive analytics have it. Missouri's been a little bit unlucky, too. It's giving up 79% from the free throw line. Only, I think, 2 or 3 teams have had worse luck in terms of what teams shoot against them. Also problematic, though, in a more real sense, is offensive rebounding. Missouri is 259th on the defensive glass, Florida 3rd. You mentioned Alex Condon, probably one of the more overlooked players in the league at this point, given how many studs this league has. But I just think Florida will be too much. Again, I cooked up a recipe in which I could see Missouri keeping it competitive, but Florida's just playing too well for me to pick against the Gators.
Yep, give me the Gators and a clean sweep. I just think, come on. We're probably, even though we all tend to think Missouri is kind of undervalued a bit right now with their overall maybe play. We're talking about a top 5 team nationally at home, who just beat the number 1 team in the country at home by 30 points. So, no shocker that we're all going to pick Florida in this spot. So,
last one.
Well, go ahead. Yeah, I'm not sure we're all going to pick the same thing in this one.
I don't know
8
what
o'clock.
we're going to do with this one.
I don't know what we're doing with this one either. Also on the SEC Network at that time, Arkansas goes to LSU, the PMAC. 2 of what the leagues is it 4 or 5 winless teams in league play. Yeah. Where do we start here, Max?
Picks. No, just kidding. If you're the fan bases, that's probably all you're here for, right? Let's call it what it is. These 2 are probably a bit down right now, but we will analyze the game here, Max.
You don't want to be in must-win season on the line scenario on January 14th, but that seems to be the case here for the Hogs. You don't pick up this one, the percentage of an at-large bid is going to drop from about 9-ish, 10-ish% to God knows what. Analyzing the matchup, it's 2 of the league's worst offenses. So you're not going to be in for a thriller, I don't think. I really think it's going to come down to who has the more consistent offense in the paint, because both teams don't shoot really well. And honestly, you can kind of take your pick because both of them have very similar numbers inside. And I don't really trust either to shoot the ball. So it's going to be a pick 'em.
Wow. Resounding vote of confidence here for this game early on. But this is such a I don't even there's a word for it when it comes to like what this game means for Arkansas, and not to discount what it means for LSU. Probably a lot of words being thrown in the comments right now. I don't know if it'll get through the YouTube moderators, but it may. If you look at it from this standpoint, this is a must-win for Arkansas, right? Because unfortunately for LSU, there are people who probably already just pushing LSU so far out of the picture of the NCAA tournament that it's going to take a lot of work, and we just wonder, can the roster get there to get them to that point? But Arkansas, despite all the talk, everything, they're still not that far away, right? They've lost 3 games in a row, but let's keep in mind, 2 of those are the top 5 teams, top 6 teams, whatever. and the other is to a 3-0 Ole Miss team who's now in the top 20. So it's or something like that. So it's like,
Yeah.
These aren't bad losses. They're bad when you watch them at times because you get frustrated losing a home game to Ole Miss, home game to Florida. Hog fans are frustrated the way they're playing at home. And again, you can't afford to drop home games in the league this year. But Arkansas is still there. They're not, getting to the tournament. I know our friend Bart Torvik, thinks that they got a 10% chance. I still think it's a little bit higher than that. And so, but that's only the case if they win this game. Where are they going to be favored? Are they going to be an underdog? Like, these are the things that we're asking ourselves, and we shouldn't be asking ourselves this about this Arkansas team. And until they prove offensively that they have what it takes, I think that's going to be the thing. Max said these are two of the worst offenses in the SEC right now. They're playing each other. The difference is Arkansas's defense has been better than LSU's, but that's all kind of relative too. It's just, I don't know. I think I want one of you to have a better grasp on this game than I do. So,
I'm going to interject a little something here. Let's say Coach Blake and Coach Max are standing by at the local YMCA, and these two teams both walk into the gym for a pickup game. Who are we taking first off the board?
Well, we know the answer to that.
Well, you know what I'm getting at. Like, if you just start picking players and talent, Cam Carter will be in there somewhere, but your first half dozen picks are probably Arkansas players.
Yep.
Boogie Fland is still a kid that's going to be playing in the NBA next year. They had two more. Yeah, look, we have just been exasperated with Arkansas all year. We've also seen Arkansas teams coached by Eric Musselman who did this exact same thing. Maybe it wasn't this ugly, but first 2 or 3 games in conference play were not pretty. And you're like, where's this season going? And it usually ended pretty differently. That's not quite off the table yet, and I think they are in a spot here. And I'm just going to go ahead and break with order. And I'm going to spoil it. I'm going to pick Arkansas just for that reason. The odds are that they are this bad every game, even though we can kind of name the reasons why. I just think at some point this gets better, right?
I would hope so. These two teams did not play last year, but John Calipari did play at LSU last year with Kentucky, and that was a 75-74 LSU victory. Where Kentucky was up by 15 in that second half lead against the Tigers, and LSU picked up that big win at home. This year, obviously Calipari with the Hogs, and I think he is going to be on the opposite end this time. Maybe a 1-possession, 2-possession win for Arkansas here is what I'm seeing. I think that all the analytics, whatever you want to look at, is going to tell you this is going to be just 50-50, any way you want to slice it. And I think if you're under 5 minutes to go and it's a 1-possession game, I trust Fland and Thero to either get to the line, to get a tough basket, more than I trust Cam Carter / whoever it is LSU's going to with the hot hand there.
Yeah, the whoever it is there after Cam Carter to me is one of the keys too, because I'm just not sure who it would be.
I will very not confidently, if you want to put it that way, go with the Razorbacks here.
Oh boy. I think this is one, again, both teams need it desperately. Look, LSU needs it more just because they're further away from the NCAA tournament picture, but it's like, again, that's kind of the interesting part of this whole thing. I'm somewhat in agreement with Chris that at some point this thing has to turn around, but I also think it's completely different in the NIL era as to having that confidence that it will turn around. And because you just don't know, you don't know where the players' minds are at after 0-3, and hearing all the negative stuff out there about how they've underachieved and those kind of things. You don't know. And I think that's kind of the tricky part when it comes to this thing. we're basing it on potential, and that potential just hasn't been there. And the other thing too, if I'm LSU, my defensive game plan has been locked in, and it doesn't change. Everybody's got a foot in the paint, and that's it. Like, that's your game plan. Make them come on the road and hit 14 threes and beat us. Don't let them get easy layups. Don't let Boogie Flan drive past everybody. If LSU does that, I think LSU's got a great chance to win. If they just decide, you know what, we're going to go down with the percentages. And the percentages say that we should let this Arkansas team shoot a lot of jump shots from outside. And so, because as we mentioned, remember, if you look at the numbers right now, Arkansas in SEC play, I mean, the numbers are staggering. Effective field goal percentage, Arkansas, worst in the SEC through 3 games, 39%. Even like offensive rebounding, right? Is that right? Oh my, is that correct?
They've shot 39% in effective field goal percentage in league play.
Yes. But keep in mind,
that's
they've
almost
played,
impossible to do for any length of time.
It's not, because they played Tennessee and Florida, who just kind of have turned it on a little bit. I think that's the only caveat here.
Yeah.
But 15th in 2-point percentage, 44.2%, 20.6% from 3. They're shooting 65% from the free throw line. That's the worst of any team through 3 games. So, you know, hey, I mean, it's like we think this can happen, but all the numbers so far have not been great. But again, I think the difference is opponent here. I'm going to pick Arkansas. I still think they're the better team, but if they lose this one, if you thought the panic button was hit already, there won't be a panic button after this game, because it'll be completely obliterated. So, yeah.
So, was that the kiss of death?
At this point, let me tell you right now, the Southeastern 16 kiss of death is the least of Arkansas's worries. They got more things to worry about
That's well
when
said.
it comes to their play right now. We have nothing to do with this.
It's not really our fault.
Yeah.
No. Oh, man. Well, let's hope for some entertaining games on Tuesday night. We'll be here to recap them later. Again, remember, we picked the other 2 games in separate videos, so you can get those there. Hit that subscribe button, enable your notifications so that when we go live after the games are over or when they're finishing, you can catch that. For Max Barr, Blake Lovell, I'm Chris Lee. You've been watching Southeastern 16 basketball content.